Once upon a time, there lived a princess who was shy and deeply emotional, yet brave at heart. She feared love more than anything else, not because she didn't believe in it, but because she was afraid it might hurt her. So she built invisible walls around her heart and never allowed anyone to come too close. The princess smiled, laughed, and fulfilled all her royal duties, but deep inside she carried a quiet loneliness. She believed that keeping distance was the only way to protect herself from pain. The king and queen watched her with loving eyes and worried hearts. They wondered how their daughter, so gentle and strong at the same time, would ever find her true love. Would destiny knock softly on her guarded heart? Or would it arrive like magic, unexpected and unstoppable? One day, the princess went out with her father on important work for the kingdom. They traveled far and worked until the sun slipped behind the mountains. By the time their task was finished, night had fallen, and it was too late to return home safely. Seeing the dark road ahead, the king asked his chariot driver to take them to the palace of a nearby kingdom. The king of that land was unaware of their arrival. When their chariot reached the palace gates, the guards stopped them. Calmly, the king introduced himself and requested the guards to inform the palace that he had arrived. The moment the other king heard the news, he hurried out himself to welcome his guest. The two kings were childhood friends, and as soon as they met, they embraced each other with joy. Laughter echoed through the palace halls as they spoke of old memories and shared stories from their lives. During dinner, the host king looked at the princess and said with admiration, "Your daughter is so beautiful. I never realized she had grown so wise and capable, helping you manage the affairs of the kingdom." With pride in his eyes, the king replied, "Yes, she is very hardworking and intelligent. She carries her responsibilities with great care." Soon after, the host king introduced his wife, the queen of the kingdom. The queen welcomed them warmly, and the evening passed in cheerful conversation and gentle smiles. Just then, the prince entered the hall. He wore a charming smile, had innocent, kind eyes, and greeted his family with loving respect. The moment the princess saw him, her eyes could not look away. Something new and unfamiliar stirred quietly in her heart. And so, under the soft glow of palace lights and whispering fate, a new chapter began. The next morning, the princess and her father the king prepared to leave for their own kingdom. Before their departure, the young prince presented them with beautiful flowers and thoughtful gifts. The king was deeply pleased by the prince's kindness and wisdom, and his heart warmed toward him. As the princess and the king walked toward their chariot to begin their journey home, the king gently asked his daughter what she thought of the prince. The princess lowered her eyes, her cheeks turning rosy with shyness. Softly, she replied that he was a good prince who cared deeply for his kingdom, and quickly changed the subject. Deep within her heart, the princess felt a quiet fear. She was afraid that allowing feelings to grow might one day bring her pain. Love, to her, felt both beautiful and frightening. The king noticed her hesitation, but smiled to himself, for he had a thoughtful plan forming in his mind for both the princess and the prince. When they returned to their kingdom, the king spoke with the queen about their daughter's upcoming birthday, which was only a week away. He suggested inviting many princes from different kingdoms, hoping that the princess might find her true soulmate among them. The queen, wise and gentle, shook her head. "Do not rush," she said kindly. "If we plan such things without her knowing, she may feel upset. Her heart must choose freely." Understanding her words, the king agreed and set the idea aside, for now. And so destiny continued to weave its quiet magic. On the morning of her birthday, the princess decided to begin her special day by doing charity. She went to the town square, where many people had gathered: poor families, shopkeepers, children, and travelers from nearby villages. Among them was a young man quietly helping the vendors arrange their goods and serve the people. No one knew that he was actually a prince from another kingdom, for he wore simple, casual clothes and stood humbly like an ordinary citizen. Soon, the princess arrived. As soon as she did, everyone gathered around her to greet her. The people wished her a happy birthday and showered her with blessings filled with love and gratitude. From a little distance away, the prince observed everything silently, carefully watching the life and spirit of the kingdom. The princess distributed gifts to the people and organized a joyful feast. On her birthday, everything was free for the people, and she promised to pay the vendors herself for all the goods sold that day. The crowd praised her kindness and spoke warmly among themselves, saying that their princess always had a big heart and endless compassion. The prince was deeply impressed by her generosity and her loving behavior toward her people. He felt something stir quietly in his heart. As the princess began her journey back to the palace, something unexpected happened. The prince's horse accidentally stepped into her path and stopped her carriage. Embarrassed, the prince quickly ran forward to move the horse away. When the princess saw him, her first thought was that he looked like a prince. But then she wondered, why would a prince be dressed so simply? Thinking he might just be an ordinary man, she looked at him with curiosity. Before he could explain, the palace guard stepped forward and stopped him. "Is this your horse?" the guard asked sternly. "Yes," the young man replied calmly. "Do not lie," said the guard. "Royal horses have special marks on their legs. How could someone like you own such a horse?" The moment grew tense and mysterious. When the guard stopped him, the princess looked closely and finally realized the truth. He was a prince. Yet she said nothing. She did not let the guard know, and the prince too remained unaware that she had recognized him. Calmly, the princess ordered the guard, "Bring him and his horse to the palace." When they arrived at the palace gates, the guard asked respectfully, "Your Highness, what should we do about this man?" The princess replied gently, "Feed his horse well. I will let him come inside with me. I wish to know why he did what he did." As the prince walked beside the princess into the palace halls, his heart beat fast. He was nervous, wondering what he would say if she took him to the king. But the princess smiled and spoke softly, "I know you are a prince." The prince stopped in surprise. "How did you recognize me?" he asked, amazed. She answered, "Why were you dressed so simply? And why didn't you tell the guard who you truly were when he questioned you about your horse? He was rude to you." The prince lowered his head and said honestly, "I like to live among the people of my kingdom. When we are in palaces, we do not truly know their struggles, their thoughts, or their problems. So I dress like them, speak like them, and listen to them." The princess was deeply impressed by his pure heart and kind intentions. The prince then said, "Thank you for not telling the guard or the others who I really am." He looked at her with warm, gentle eyes. Soon he bowed politely and said goodbye. The princess turned to the guard and ordered, "Let him and his horse go." The guard looked confused, a question clearly written on his face. The princess smiled and said, "He works for the royal family." The guard sighed in relief, apologized to the prince, and stepped aside respectfully. Before the prince left, the princess gifted him fresh flowers and delicious food. He tried to refuse, but she insisted and said with a soft laugh, "It's my birthday. Please take it." In his heart, he decided he must do something special for her birthday. Before leaving, he said, "There is a beautiful garden near the river. If you come to visit, it would be an honor for me." The princess watched him ride away, her heart quietly curious. Will the princess go to the garden? What magic awaits them there? As evening fell, the prince waited in the moonlit garden for the princess. The princess felt shy and hesitant, her heart fluttering with uncertainty. After a moment of courage, she finally decided to go. When the prince saw her, he was mesmerized by her beauty. The garden was glowing. He had prepared flowers, lights, music, and many lovely surprises just for her. The prince bowed gracefully and said, "Happy birthday, princess." Then he asked softly, "May I have this dance?" The princess smiled and said yes. They danced beneath the stars, talked with laughter and warmth, and shared a wonderful dinner together. Time passed like a dream. It was time for the princess to return to her castle. "Thank you for making my birthday so beautiful," the princess said gently. "The pleasure is mine," replied the prince. He brought his horse and safely escorted the princess back to her castle. When they returned to their own places, both found themselves missing each other, their thoughts filled with the memory of the evening. Later, the king asked the princess where she had been. The princess, who never lied to her father, told him everything about the prince and the magical night. The king smiled with happiness. He was glad to know that his daughter had finally begun to like someone. And so, the story continues. The next day, the king spoke to the queen about their dear daughter. He told her that the princess had grown fond of a prince from another kingdom, and shared the whole story with her. The queen was very happy to hear this wonderful news. After that, the princess and the prince met many times over the next few months. With each meeting, their friendship grew stronger and their hearts became closer. One day, under the soft golden light of the evening, the prince gathered his courage and gently proposed to the princess. He asked if she would marry him. The princess felt happy, but also a little nervous. "I need some time," she said softly. Later, she went to speak with her father. She shared her feelings and asked for his advice. The king smiled warmly and said, "My dear child, if your heart tells you he is the right one for you, then say yes. We will always support you and stand by your dreams." The next day, the prince and princess met again. With hope in his eyes, the prince asked for her answer. Taking a deep breath and listening to her heart, the princess smiled and said, "Yes." They were both filled with joy. A week later, the prince's father, the king of his kingdom, announced a grand engagement celebration. Both kingdoms rejoiced, and the two kings were very happy to see their children's love bring their lands closer together. And so, with love, happiness, and blessings all around, this beautiful story came to a joyful end.